Honolulu Police Chief Louis Kealoha, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Katherine Kealoha, and Sergeant Daniel Sellers were taken into custody by the FBI pursuant to a federal grand jury indictment. They just had their initial appearance moments ago. U.S. Attorney Robinson will go more specifically into the details of the charges. What it makes clear is this is far more than a case about a stolen mailbox. It's an ongoing investigation that began following the mistrial of Gerard Puana, subsequent allegations that Honolulu police officers had falsified evidence and testimony in that investigation. The investigation thereafter uncovered much more. To address the indictment, I'd like to introduce the Acting United States Attorney for the Southern District of California, Ron Robinson.
Everyone in Honolulu knows what happened on June 21st, 2013, when the Kealoha's mailbox was allegedly stolen. The federal indictment, unsealed today, sets forth why it happened. Thank you, Special Agent in Charge Paul Delacourt, for that introduction. Thank you, Acting Chief of Honolulu Police Corey Okamoto, for being here. I'd like to introduce you to the prosecutors on the team: Michael Wheat, Janaki Gandhi, Colin McDonald, and Eric Best. Today, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Katherine Kealoha and her husband, former Honolulu Police Chief Louis Kealoha, as well as 4 members of the department's Criminal Intelligence Unit, were indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of conspiracy, obstruction, making false statements to a federal officer, bank fraud, and aggravated identity theft. The 20-count indictment describes a complex web of fraud, deception, and obstruction by a husband and wife team so desperate to fund their lifestyle and maintain their self-professed status as Honolulu's power couple that they swindled hundreds of thousands of dollars from banks, credit unions, and some of the most vulnerable members of the community, including a disabled uncle, a 98-year-old grandmother, and 2 minor children who were under Katherine Kealoha's guardianship. According to the indictment, the Kealohas used the stolen money to pay for a variety of personal expenses, including their mortgage and tens of thousands of dollars in bank loans, car payments for a Maserati and a Mercedes-Benz, Elton John concert tickets, travel expenses, restaurant trips, even a trip to Disneyland, donations to charity, as well as the $26,000 brunch tab at the Sheraton Waikiki to celebrate Louis Kealoha's induction as the police chief in 2009. That's just a small sampling of how they spent the stolen money. But the most troubling aspect of this case is the way these powerful defendants allegedly manipulated the justice system for their own purposes. When family members became concerned about what happened to their investments, the Kealohas used their considerable power and influence as public officials to launch a secret campaign to cover up their financial crimes and to discredit their victims with the help of a few friends from the department's elite Criminal Intelligence Unit. As laid out in the indictment, they accused an uncle of stealing a mailbox in search of bank statements related to their financial dispute. In reality, the Kealohas and a handful of Criminal Intelligence Unit officers staged the mailbox theft. They selectively edited video surveillance. They falsely identified the uncle as the culprit captured in the video. They falsified police reports. They withheld or failed to investigate critical evidence. They unlawfully conducted surveillance and searches, planted evidence, and lied to federal prosecutors and and investigators in order to frame the uncle for the crime, as alleged in the indictment. Their actions led to his arrest and prosecution in federal court, but that case ended in a mistrial. Katherine Kealoha even accused her uncle of committing elder abuse and fraud against his own mother, her grandmother, and she tried to have her grandmother declared incompetent. The indictment also describes the further acts of financial fraud involving the Kealohas. In particular, the misappropriation of trust funds set aside for two minors. When she was an attorney in private practice in 2004, Katherine Kealoha was appointed by the Hawaii State Court to be a trustee and guardian for two children, ages 12 and 10. When another attorney repeatedly questioned Katherine Kealoha about the status of the funds, she attempted to conceal her deception by creating and forwarding emails from a fictional assistant, Allison Lee Wong, to make it appear that the relevant documents were being prepared and that nothing was amiss. However, something was very much amiss. The funds were gone. The indictment alleges that Katherine Kealoha stole $150,000, almost all of the funds from the trust accounts, ultimately depleting the funds by withdrawing various sums over time. Local publications have referred to the Kealohas as the dynamic duo. Unfortunately, the indictment alleges that instead of using their powers to seek justice and uphold the rule of law, they did everything they possibly could to undermine it. In the process, they cast a shadow over the overwhelming majority of Honolulu police officers who put their lives on the line every day to keep the community safe and preserve the constitutional rights of the citizens of this beautiful city. No one, not a police chief, not a prosecutor, is above the law. Starting today, these defendants can't use the power of their offices to act as if they are. Certainly, this case has rocked the police department and this city for some time now. But today is a new beginning. It is our hope and our belief that today's charges will ultimately deliver justice to those who betrayed their badges and bolster the reputation of a department that has suffered because of the actions of a corrupt few. I would like to acknowledge the excellent work of the diligent FBI agents here in Honolulu who have spent the past 2 years piecing together this extraordinary case. I would also like to thank FBI divisions in Portland and San Diego who provided substantial assistance and cooperation in this matter. Now I'd like to invite Special Agent in Charge Delacourt to make some comments.
Yesterday's indictment affirms the FBI's commitment to vigorously investigate and prosecute corruption and fraud wherever it takes place. The FBI is firmly committed to ensuring that public officials and their co-conspirators who choose to use their positions for personal gain instead of to the public's gain, rather than provide honest services, will be thoroughly investigated. Every day, hardworking men and women of the Honolulu Police Department put their safety on the line to do a difficult job. Abuses of power undermine that mission and the efforts of those who protect our neighborhoods. The allegations and the charges in the indictments should not be taken by members of the public as a question of integrity of law enforcement officers who serve in our communities. The FBI and the Honolulu Police Department share a commitment to protect the public, uphold the rights of all citizens. It is no coincidence that Chief Okamoto is here with us today. We value and respect our long-standing relationship with the Honolulu Police Department, and we remain committed to continuing to work closely with that department at all levels to ensure that the mission is accomplished and public trust is restored. This time I'd like to introduce Chief Okamoto.
Thank you, Special Agent in Charge Delaporte, for giving me this opportunity to address all of you. This week's arrest hurt the Honolulu Police Department and the entire community. These allegations are extremely serious. I want to assure the public that the actions that have been alleged do not represent the values of HPD. HPD has been and will continue to cooperate with the federal investigators. I ask the public not to let the actions of a few officers taint the good work that our 2,500 employees, both sworn and civilian, do every day. Finally, I would like to also thank the public for their support at this very difficult time. Thank you.
At this time, we'll take a few questions.
Is this it, or is the investigation still ongoing?
Well, we're here today to announce this indictment and to talk about the serious charges in this indictment. We're not at liberty to talk about what might be coming.
Given the scope of this, do you feel it's necessary to have some sort of federal oversight with HPD?
Again, we're here to talk about this indictment and the serious charges here. I think that in the process that will unfold in the court, all the answers to your questions will be made apparent.
In court, Mr. Best talked about the potential for future obstruction. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Again, I'm here today to talk about what's in the public record. Certainly, you can all read the indictment and the extensive allegations which lay out a pattern of many, many years of obstructive behavior. And I think you all can make your own inferences from that.
How do you think this indictment of Katherine Kealoha will affect any cases that she may have over at the city prosecutor's office?
Well, that is a very good question, and that will again will become apparent in the coming months. But I would imagine there's the potential for repercussions.
Do you expect that a second grand jury will be impaneled?
I can't comment on that at this moment.
And does this end San Diego's involvement in this, or does it continue on?
Well, San Diego, this is just the beginning. We have returned the indictment. The federal prosecutors from San Diego will continue to lead the prosecution in this case through resolution.
Is the investigation still continuing? For instance, who took the mailbox off the post, if not the previous alleged?
Again, that is the question of the hour, and I believe in this litigation all your answers will be forthcoming.
Through a continued investigation?
I'm not at liberty to talk about investigation and anything at the investigation stage at this point.
Excuse me, can you connect the dots for us how the allegations of financial crimes connect with the allegations of framing of her individual here?
So you're all at a really good advantage, because what you have in your hands is a lengthy speaking indictment which lays out the whole theory of how the Kealoha's financial difficulties led them to a series of obstructive acts, falsifying information, and ultimately attempting to frame the uncle. So I think that if you look at that indictment, you'll see a very extensive explanation of the sad things that transpired.
Would this have been possible without the federal public defenders involved in this trial?
I think that the federal defenders were the ones who first brought this to the attention of law enforcement, and that was certainly the right thing for them to do, and then the federal government took it from there.
What is your response to Mr. Breiner's allegation that this is just all the result of shoddy police work and not a conspiracy?
Well, certainly he has his right to his theory of the defense, and that's exactly what that is. I think that you'll see that the grand jury thought that there was probable cause to believe otherwise if you look at the allegations that they made in the indictment.
Do you have an estimate as to costs so far of this investigative process, grand jury, and the agents involved?
I do not. We do not look so much at how much justice is going to cost, but if we are looking at a serious matter, we're going to use every resource that is necessary in order to bring those who would obstruct the law and abuse their positions of authority, to bring them to justice.
As an outsider, how would you say this compares to
Well, as you can see from the indictment, the allegations are levied against some very high-level public officials, the former chief of police here in Honolulu, and a very high-ranking member of the district attorney, as well as 4 other public servants, police officers sworn to uphold the law. And that's always disconcerting to the community and to the government when that happens. I think that you can probably draw your own conclusions about how serious it is given their stature and the breadth and scope and length of the allegations levied against them.
This investigation took several years. Do you have any indication that any evidence might have been destroyed during that period of time? And you folks executed a search warrant just the other day.
Well, as is detailed in court documents, we know that already certain pieces of evidence have been destroyed. The allegation is that the defendants were involved and in fact directed the destruction of evidence such as videotapes, things that could have answered the question about what happened to the mailbox. That's all alleged in court documents.
Was it just the videotape or any additional documents or computers that they might have destroyed?
Again, I think all that information is going to come out in the proceedings.
We talked a lot about the alleged actions of the Kealohas, but what does this indictment say about the culture at CIU, the Criminal Intelligence Unit?
The Criminal Intelligence Unit is designed as an elite group that is involved in investigating and gathering intelligence about major threats. The way it was set up with Honolulu PD is that they work directly under the Chief of Police. There is in this unit, as with all police, a great deal of public trust in their hands. And when that public trust is abused, it's a very serious matter.
What is your theory as to why, I know it's spoken to a bit in the indictments, family relationships, business partners, but can you speak to what your theory is as to why? Why would they agree to help in this alleged conspiracy?
So I don't really think that my personal opinion is very newsworthy. Did you have a question over here?
I have a question for Acting Chief Okimoto and what the future of CIU might be.
Given these circumstances, the future of CIU is still has a job to do. We monitor them very closely. I meet with them every other day, find out what they're doing. There's been a changeover in personnel. Like any other group or any other division in the police department, you need supervision to be very, very tight, to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And when you don't have that, and you don't have those controls in place, then things like this could happen real easily.
So what's the difference in the supervision? Because before it was always under the supervision of the police chief, and it sounds like that's still the case. Is there an added layer of supervision or accountability that's going to be added to this?
I mean, there's a captain and a lieutenant, and they're detectives, and we have meetings all the time. So it's not just sight unseen. I meet with them, and I make sure that they know what their job is, and they're doing it the right way.
Sir, if these allegations are proven in court, is the HPD equipped to monitor itself and to prepare itself from the inside? Or do you think that HPD should have some form of outside oversight to make the necessary changes?
Right now, I think that we have enough to manage and have that oversight. As a new chief comes in, he or she needs to understand that, like any other division, any other district, you need your personnel to be held to a high standard, and you need to supervise these people to make sure that you know what they're doing and what they're not doing. So they have a job to do. They need to do that job, whatever that task is. My way of supervision is not to let people do whatever it is that they want to do.
Chief, how much of a toll has this 2-year controversy had on the HPD?
It's taken a huge toll on all the personnel in the department. You know, it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop. We continue to move forward. We continue to do our job every day, and that's reflected on our crime stats, our keeping the fatalities down, our traffic enforcement. We need to stay focused and focus on our work.
Chief, what is the morale of the officers today, do you think?
But it can't be good. I know my morale is not too good today, but again, it's not about that. It's about pressing on and doing our job and what we're tasked with in the community.
The arrested officers worked on so many other cases. What to the credibility of their work in all of their other cases when those reach prosecution?
That'll be looked at.
And Chief, are you concerned at all because if there is additional fallout and it affects cases that Katherine Kealoha may have prosecuted, are you concerned that it may undo some of the work that the Honolulu Police Department has done?
Certainly, that's a possibility.
Did you folks discuss that with the prosecutor's office?
Not yet, but we will. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate your covering this very much. Thank you.